What up, everybody? I'm Alex. He's Mitch. That's Vinny. We're the doctors. We're dooming. Say hello, fellas. It's podcast time.
Hello.
Ciao, friends.
Yeah,
I'm
try.
yeah, I'm practicing. I'm practicing for my 3 week hiatus.
Arrivederci.
Yeah, tried some bumper music last time and did not go over correctly. So we're just gonna go the shorter intro this time. So Vin's gonna be taking a 3 week hiatus to go and spend time in Italy, the lucky bastard. But the rest of us will be here, still holding down the fort, doing our jobs. But here we are. Been kind of a slow week in sports with not a lot going on. Basketball playoffs kind of on hiatus until the next series starts. Same with hockey playoffs. So we really just got baseball going on right now. What do you boys want to talk about this week?
I
Well, I
got
will say, I think since we last met, at least the finals have been finalized. And for both. So I think it'd be interesting to hear everybody's thoughts on who they think is the favorite. Maybe more so in the Stanley Cup, because if you don't think Oklahoma City is the favorite in the NBA Finals, then you're probably high on whatever Mitch was on in college.
oh no.
Yeah, I'm sure the NBA
I
is
don't
not
think they
super
sell that
stoked
anymore.
about the Pacers Thunder matchup when they could have had, the Knicks in the finals would have been a lot better for them, from a eyes on screen
speaking of hi-
standpoint.
speaking of high on stuff, does anyone know what Stephon Diggs was doing?
Yeah, I hear it's some like I don't know. It's like a
I knew
they call
instantly
it
what it was, unless
the
it's changed.
pink something, and then I don't know. It's like a version of Coke or something.
Sure. Yeah. Close.
Is it heroin-esque?
It could be cut with anything. So the reason why it's dyed like that is one reason is if you put food color dye. Or Alex, do you want to take the lead on this one, or you want me to go with it?
No, it sounds like you already are an expert on the subject, so why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so if you dye your drugs, it's for one reason and one reason only. It's to add volume to it. But assuming Stephon Diggs is not buying cheap ass ghetto drugs like the majority of us have to do, and he's probably got a good connect. The only reason top end dealers dye drugs like that is to distinguish their batches. So what they'll do is they'll make an assortment. It'll be like a little cocaine, a little Molly. They'll dye that pink. Okay, a little cocaine, a little heroin. They'll dye that blue. They'll do it so they can, one, it does provide more volume. So when you weigh it out, you're basically paying for more. Two, it's like basically high end drug dealing. So it's like you know what you're getting. Also, it's to avoid suspicion that if you have a bunch of green substance in your bag, people might be like, oh, it's not immediately assumed to be a certain drug. So it's just literally like whatever the concoction is of that drug dealer. So the only way you'll ever find out is by drug testing him. I'm assuming since it's Devon Diggs and Cardi B, it's definitely a little Molly and definitely a little Coke mixed, but that's an assumption. It could be cut with anything, PCP, speed, whatever, but only the drug dealer knows.
Yeah. My favorite was all the comments actually on the video. There was a viral video last week that went out of Stephon Diggs on a boat with Cardi B and a whole bunch of thoughts, and and all the comments are just talking about how unattractive all the girls were.
For
And
sure.
and then they're like, well, he just kept repeating, "What's my name? What's my name?" And all these like sixes just kept yelling, "Daddy, daddy, daddy," and that's probably my favorite part of the whole video.
Yeah.
Um, it's just wild, and then
Are you
he's for
saying, are you
sure
implying
not
that two
planning on
sixes doesn't
showing
make a
up.
12?
No, no. And he's for sure not planning on showing up to the off season and then gets busted from that video and has to go back to the off season.
And everyone's criticizing Rogers because he wants to do ayahuasca in a desert in the off season. This dude's over here on a boat with basically baddies and Cardi B, and everyone's just like, "Who cares? Leave him alone."
Yeah, yeah. But uh
Uh,
So
I
that
guess
was a
that's a
hard
good
swerve. You
segue.
guys spent about 2 seconds talking about the NBA Finals and immediately swerved into, hey, let's talk about
oh,
this
yeah, I forgot. I forgot.
drug
Yeah,
party
NBA
on a boat.
Finals.
And then,
Speaking of the NBA
Mitch,
Finals,
why did you think that I would be the one that should run with that story? Like, what? Why did you think
that's
I would
I
be the
was
one?
making. That's a joke because you've never drank before. So I was just I was making a
I thought maybe it was like an inside joke to the UCSB apartment where like there was color
oh
coded
pink
pink.
stuff. Yeah. Oh damn, that's not bad actually. It's not bad. No, I kept that in the frat house, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, but NBA Finals, I think, I mean, yeah, Oklahoma City has to be the favorite, right?
I think they're the biggest favorites since the Shaq Lakers went into Indiana or the Sixers in 2003. If you look at the odds, Thunder's the biggest favorites since then. And even their first game on Thursday, I think is 10-point spread.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
speaking of which,
all the ESPN talking heads, I think they all picked Thunder in 5. I think one took Thunder in 6, but that's probably a pity vote, right? Like, and for
yeah.
those who don't
Well,
know, like sweeps are very rare in sports, especially at the top end, just because like the other team's going to find it from somewhere to get at least one game. But like to say everyone thinking they're going to win it in 5 basically means it's going to be a crush. Like it's going to be one sided.
so correct me if I'm wrong, but Halliburton was in the Paul George trade, and Shane Gillis-Alexander was in the Paul George trade, right? So Paul George is a direct recipient of two NBA teams that he left in the last 6 years, and they both went on to get um, Olympic level players, MVP caliber players, and they're both in the finals.
Yeah, I honestly the Halliburton stuff, I think, 2 years ago, a year ago, he's been like heavily involved in a lot of Lakers trade rumors, and I'm like, I don't even know who this dude is, and he instantly develops into a superstar. Um,
Yeah, I said last week on the podcast, I'm like, don't sleep. He just didn't make any noise, but he was on that Olympic roster in France a year ago. He just wasn't complaining on the bench the whole time like Tatum was. So Tatum got all the publicity, but Halliburton was sitting right next to him, on that roster. So I mean, he's the real deal.
Yeah, speaking of Paul George, I saw a clip from earlier this week of Charles Barkley, and he's like, "What man? Why you call yourself playoff P? Because you don't win anything in the playoff. That'd be like calling me champion Chuck."
Yeah.
So Paul George shade just out of nowhere, but
And I will say, Tyrese Halliburton. For those who don't know, because we talked about this last time, not a household name, but Halliburton is the Pacers' best player. The problem with that is that the team he plays the worst against is the Oklahoma City Thunder. The team that is the best defensive team in the NBA is the Oklahoma City Thunder. And when you combine those two things together, them being the best defensive team and your star struggling specifically against that team, and OKC having home field or home court advantage, like I don't see a world where the Pacers pull this one out.
yeah. And then I don't know. I think a kind of a callback to whatever it was like 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago when we were talking about the Thunder. Do you guys remember what the Thunder's record was against Eastern Conference teams?
I think they had like two losses, one loss.
One loss, 29
Yeah.
and 1. It was the best record, interconference record by like 2 or 3 games ever. So, I think they got through their gauntlet, right? And honestly, was it even a gauntlet? They kind of steamrolled through everybody except for Denver, who should have been the hardest one. And then the Minnesota series was so disappointing. Like it was, unfortunately, Minnesota didn't even show up, or did show up, and Oklahoma City's just that good.
Yeah, Pacers
I think
going
they're
back to
just
the
that good.
finals.
And you know what's weird? Sorry, go ahead, Mitch. No, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just saying like I was literally just gonna say like I heard on the radio is like, oh, the Pacers haven't been to the finals in decades, and I was like, what? The Pacers are always good. They were there with Reggie. They were there. Like they went there against my Lakers, and then I realized that's 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was
like,
about to say, man,
golly,
you want to get a real kick in the gut, like that's not
golly.
recent. When you mentioned Reggie Miller,
Yeah, and
it's
I was like, no, that team was so good with the Malice and the Palace, and they went out of the Eastern Conference Finals a lot of times. Like they were a real contender until not Stephen A. Smith, Steven Jackson, sorry, and Ron Artest left the team. Then they weren't really, and Reggie retired. I was like, they were really good for most of the time I knew basketball, and someone's like, yeah, that's 20 years ago. Holy hell!
it's wild. Like obviously, look, we don't advertise this podcast. We're doing it mainly for us, and some of our friends listen. So like they're gonna get the references. But if somehow someday this actually becomes like a thing, and like people listen, the younger generation's gonna have no idea who these players are that we talk about half the time when we reference all these old guys. Like, because like to us, they're our childhood. It's like, yeah, but now I'm 40 and you two are getting close to it. Like, these aren't young whippersnappers in the sports world. Like, you're old once you're, in this world, it's like Leo DiCaprio's girlfriends. Once you hit 25, you're out.
Yeah.
No, for sure. That's what I was saying with the Julio Jones argument the other day. He's like 33, 32, and it's like you were the best in your field. You've literally done like gone to Alabama, gone to the top of the field, always been like you were the just considered no matter what your job is. Just imagine you were considered like the elite 1%, and then someone at 33 years old is like that was fun. Now go do something else in life.
That's the craziest part to me, and we're getting a little off topic, but I still think it's worth talking about. Like how fast age matters, because these are players who literally go from that is a top 5, top 10 player at their position in the world, and then 2 years later they're not good enough to make a roster. Now I know it's not. Now to be fair to them, it's not just they're not good enough to make a roster. It's more so that the amount of money it would take to get them on the roster isn't worth it for their talent level, because it's not like if they were accepting the same pay as a third-string wide receiver, they would probably get a third-string wideout job. But it's still that's still a pretty big fall from grace to be like, hey, you could be a number 1 wide receiver on any team in the league to nobody wants you anymore.
Yeah, and then you have to go figure out what you're going to go do, like sell used cars or go back to school and get a degree or something. Because let's be honest, most of them didn't graduate. So
yeah, that's for LeBron James, which is the only reason I have him in the GOAT conversation is his longevity.
Yeah, 20 years is insane. Like when people think back on it, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird played what was it, 11 years, 9 years? He's going to almost double their careers. That's wild. I do have football stuff like we could lead into.
Well, let's. I mean, we're on the NBA right now. Let's finish up the NBA conversation here. So, but yeah. So it sounds like we're kind of all on the same page that it'd take a miracle for the Pacers to come back. Does anyone, or not come back? They're not already down, but just to win this sucker. Does anyone have any kind of prediction of anything cool or interesting that might happen, or how many games it's going to go, or are you guys just like, no, this is kind of a wash, not interesting?
Yeah, I think SGA is going to dominate the series. I don't know. It's hard to assume anything interesting is going to happen outside of maybe a sweep. I think a sweep is very realistic, which would be disappointing for an NBA Finals, but also impressive for an NBA Finals.
So here's something that's impressive for me is I'm not a betting person. I have been betting more, and it probably depends on my income, but that's getting a little off topic. If I was like a degenerate gambler betting, I would look at this first line on Thursday and I would be all over it. You get 10.5 points and plus 320 for the Pacers. I'm not saying the Pacers are going to win the series or even go to 6, but if I was a betting person and wanted to make, an easier way to come, a high return, you know what I mean? Obviously you're taking crazy odds when you want high return, but to me, this is like really? The Pacers are a completely different team since both trades. And since that trade in January, they've only lost a total of 12 games, including the playoffs. And you're giving me 10.5 points plus 320. Like, if I were a betting man, I would be betting a good amount of money on Thursday night's game. I don't really have a say on who's going to win the series because for me, it really does seem like the Thunder have this locked up. I mean, they impressed me so much this playoffs. Not even just like, oh, they're playing the Pacers. It would be different if they played the Celtics with Tatum, sure, whatever. But what they did in the West, made a believer out of me. So I'm not going to say go, bet the Pacers to win the finals. But game 1, you're giving me 10.5 points to plus 320? Sign me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Good. I think the Thunder have the potential to beat anybody by 30 every night just because of their defense. So
sure,
I think that's a sucker bet. I think that's the whole point. That's why I think Vegas is really good at what they do for that reason.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is the Pacers kind of blew. I think the Pacers kind of blew their load, to be honest with you, with those 2 massive comeback victories that they had earlier in the playoffs. Like that's the kind of thing that it takes it out of you, like the team of destiny feeling. You know what I mean? And you get that feeling, and then you kind of get brought back down to earth. If that had happened during this series, they'd be feeling it. But that happened a while ago now. It's going to be 2 weeks removed from those epic comebacks. And I just feel like, you used all your adrenaline from that, and now you've come back down to earth, and I think you kind of blew your load there, so to speak.
I think Alex, not to, I think it could be a little bit of the opposite. No offense or anything, just because like everyone always says this in sports, like act like you've been there. There's a reason. Experience matters. Experience matters. The Thunder are so young and they have no one who's been there. SGA didn't even do well in the Olympics a year ago. He crumbled under the pressure of the Olympics and everyone watching. I know the Olympics pressure is crazy, but this is an NBA Finals. This is Game One. And then you on the flip side, Pascal Siakam has a championship. They have the other guys I can't remember. They have guys who have played in NBA Finals or won an NBA championship. If there was a game that a veteran roster could steal against a crazy young team, which I think the Thunder's average age is no joke, 24 years old. Game one is the one you steal. Like the Thunder might just be too overwhelmed with the moment. I know that might be a cliche. I don't know how much of that's reality, but they're not robots. They are human beings. And it's like, man, this is game one. I don't know. I feel like give me 11 points, even if the Thunder win, but I only lose by 10 points, I still cover the spread. I feel like I don't want to encourage anyone, but this one's blaringly like, I feel like a lot of people were betting on the Thunder, Thunder, Thunder. So Vegas had to adjust the line and say, all right, we need a bigger spread than 4.5 points or 5.5 points because so many people are taking the Thunder.
No,
so I don't know.
I hear what you're saying, but I also think like I think one of the knocks on the Thunder, like you said, is lack of experience, and like coming with lack of experience is you haven't been tested. Well, I would argue they were tested in that Nuggets series. Like yes, they
for sure.
The other two series, no, they weren't, but in the Nuggets series, they were tested. They played against the best player in the NBA, in Jokic. They took them to 7 games, and they won a hard fought series. And I think that the fact that they went from that into the next series against the Timberwolves and just steamrolled the T-Wolves, I think they're just unstoppable, right? If they had gone into the T-Wolf series and like been exhausted from that 7-game series, or like been on riding such a high that they were making mistakes and stuff, like because that can happen on experienced teams, I'd be more concerned. But no, they didn't miss a beat. They got past the hard series and then just not swept, but like I said, a 5-game series is basically a sweep in the NBA, in my opinion.
No, you're totally right. I've been sorry, Benny.
No, I was gonna say like I'm looking at the bracket that Alex has pulled up and like, dude, they made Minnesota look like they're not even in the same league.
For sure.
And Minnesota blew through the Lakers and the Warriors back to back. And granted, the Warriors were down Steph for most of that series, but the T-Wolves went 4-1, 4-1 against the Lakers and the Warriors, who were arguably the two best teams after the All-Star break. And then the frickin' Thunder routed them in the Western Finals. And Minnesota had only played 10 total games compared to OKC coming off a 7-game series. So, yeah, it's just pretty impressive actually what they did.
Yeah, a little side note. Alex, you might be 100. You're probably 100% right because I've been doubting the Thunder every step of the way that I have the ability to doubt them, and they've proven me wrong. So you're probably right. They'll probably just come out and steamroll the Pacers, and then I'll look like an idiot. But another side note is I'm not a very big Durant fan, and I'm actually mad at Durant for ruining the NBA for about 4.5, 5 years. So OKC winning a title would just be a cherry on the top to shitting on Durant's career. So
Yeah.
I'm actually rooting for the Thunder.
I have a hypothetical for you here.
Yeah,
Kind of
I
shifting
like
gears
that.
to we've been kind of crapping on the Pacers the whole time. So I'm looking at this bracket. So the Pacers beat the Bucks in 5, beat the Cavs in 5, and then beat the Knicks in 6. If they beat the Celtics in 6, let's just assume that the Celtics advance and that they're the
Full
better
strength
team.
Celtics or
Yeah, full
oh,
strength Celtics. Like the
okay.
Knicks beat the Celtics fair and square outside of
Not
like
really.
a game with
Tatum's gone.
Tatum, but 2 games
Yeah,
with Tatum.
yeah,
But at that point in time, I think they had a 3-1 lead, right? So,
for sure.
um, but let's just say they beat a full strength Celtics. Does the narrative change a little bit? Because beating the Bucks and the Cavs as easily as they did, and honestly, beating the Knicks as easily as they did, I didn't really think that series was ever close. It's a pretty impressive run
For
if
sure.
you
No, this
actually
is the
step
coming
back and
out
think
party for
about it.
Halliburton or SGA for sure.
Uh,
If either team wins in 5 or whatever, Halliburton and SGA, it's their coming out party.
Oh yeah, and just to be clear, like it's not like I'm not knocking the Pacers or their run. Like the Pacers have also kind of cruised through these playoffs. The only team that gave them any trouble at all was the Knicks, and they only lost 2 games there. So like, I'm not knocking them, but I think if the Celtics didn't have those injury issues and made it to that series, it might have been a different series entirely, right? So it's hard to say that the I don't know. They don't feel to me the same juggernaut level that OKC feel like. OKC just seems to be the best team and not close from the eyeball test to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So I looked it up. I think since the trade, the Pacers are 25-9, including
Pretty good.
games. That's really good. So and this could be just like, oh, we didn't have enough time to see the Pacers all year, and they might have been higher than a 4 seed if they had more time with that team. So that could be part of the issue. But who knows?
The Thunder also only lost like 9 games all season, so
Yeah, in the West, in the
in the
West.
West. Well,
Like
I mean,
again,
their final record to me isn't even indicative of like the domination they had earlier in the year. What did they end up with? Like 13 losses? Were they 69-13?
yeah, no. Again, Vinny, I might be borderline what someone might call a hater because I'm not hating on them, but every chance along the lines of them like being like a legitimate team all year long, I'm like, oh, they'll fall off. Oh, the All-Star break once the NBA starts trying because the NBA doesn't try up until the All. Oh, well, once the playoffs start. Oh, well, once they get in a series with the Nuggets. Oh, wait, and every time it's just like, nope, they proved me wrong. So I might just be a little biased, and they just might be
No,
effing good.
I'm an OKC hater too. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I think they're like the most boring, dominant team in sports history, if we're being honest. Like
I mean, maybe
they're
yeah.
not getting the credit that they deserve because I think as good as SGA is, he's not a true superstar. And then
No.
they're just a good team after that. They're good defensively. They're a good offensive team, but they don't. There's not that second star, so it makes them really weird. You know, it's not a Kobe Shaq. It's not a LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. It's not a Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. Like, it's a very unique situation that they're as dominant as they are with just SGA, who, by all accounts and purposes, is a boring superstar.
So that was like I forget which sports show I was listening to, but their whole thing the last week was we could I don't want to conclude it, but like this basically like so for years we're complaining like oh it's the Warriors in the finals again, oh it's the Spurs in the finals again, oh it's the Heat in the finals again, oh we all complain about these super teams, and then we get OKC Indiana who don't have super teams, they actually went out, drafted, traded, built a team, and we're like boring finals. So it's like what do we truly want? Do we want the team that only has the one superstar and actually builds the roster, or do we want these super teams that we can hate or root for or whatever? Because for the longest time, it's like, oh, same teams in the NBA is the most predictable sport, and then now all of a sudden we have the most unpredictable postseason, and everyone's like, oh, what a boring finals.
Well, so just for clarity, I personally like obviously I'd rather see my team in the final, right? But outside of that, so out like putting that aside, I just
sure.
want to see a good matchup. Like I want to see good basketball that's like back and forth. And I think the reason that I'm not excited about this series is, I mean, yes, I'm not a huge basketball fan, so like take with a grain of salt my opinion, obviously, because I'm not a huge basketball guy. But I would be a lot more excited in the series, regardless who the teams are. I don't care if they're big market or small market, as long as I thought it was going to be a good matchup, right? Like we all kind of looked at this matchup. ESPN and all those talking heads look at this matchup and they're like, oh yeah, Oklahoma City's going to win, right? So like when you can write it off right away like that, it takes away a lot of my interest in the series because like sure, rooting for the underdog is fun, but if the underdog's getting clapped by 25 points a game, that's not even interesting. So it's I think the issue isn't that they're like I've commented on. I think the ratings will be low because they're small markets without big name stars. So I think that's going to hurt the NBA's ratings. The NBA cares about that. Me personally, I don't care about that. Like I would watch if I thought it was going to be good back and forth series that anybody could win. The fact that, as you can see, the spread on the game is already 10 points, right? Like,
And that moved. I think it was like 11 and a half a couple days ago.
right, but that's still a big number, man. Like that's
Yeah, it's a huge number.
so
It's a huge. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I agree. So like
yeah.
Warriors Knicks, you know what I mean? Like how exciting would that be? Everyone would be like, oh my gosh, but that might not be a better series than what we're gonna get.
No, but
So I
but
agree
it,
with
but it
what
would
you're
have
saying.
two things in this series. I mean, it would have bigger star power, and not that SGA is the MVP for a reason, right? Halliburton has been playing great. I'm not knocking their play, but they're not household names. They're just not. Whereas a Steph Curry is, right? So that's that when you lose the big household name player and the big market, because you would have had California versus New York in that scenario that you just described.
Yep.
So like you're losing big market people watching, and you're losing big name people watching.
So that's what I'm saying is more people would probably watch Warriors Knicks, but OKC Pacers is probably gonna be a much more fun series to watch for for the basketball lover. I think.
Yeah, I
I think we're
also
saying
think
the same thing. Sorry.
there's some truth to that though. I mean, as well, like on the flip side, I think everybody likes to root against people as well. So like
Yep.
if you did have like the Warriors and you're sick of Steph Curry, if you did have the Lakers in the final and you're sick of LeBron and Luca and just the Lakers in general, I get it. Like people might want somebody to root against and just to complain about it and be mad about it and hope that the underdog, let's say Pacers win in that situation. Or, I'm also thinking college football. I thought it was the biggest crock that somehow TCU ran their way into the championship against Georgia and just got absolutely steamrolled. They lost by like 50 points or something, right?
Yeah.
But like that's the same thing. Like I hate Georgia. What was the other option? Like Ohio State or Bama? Like I would have hated both of those. But here I was like complaining about TCU and then not even rooting for them because I didn't think they deserved to be there. So it's funny. I think we all love to have something to hate more than we love to have something to root for, which is kind of the superstar theory, Like you want the team to beat Alabama every year, or the team to beat, whoever this. We all love a good underdog story, but not when it's two underdogs playing each other. Does that make sense?
Agreed. I agree. Yeah, I probably watched the Suns this year more than I should have just because I like hating Durant. So I like watching the Suns lose. So, and then another thing too with this, I'll end it on this for me myself is in 08, 09, like the reason why I never had a problem with those LeBron Heat teams or anything is because of what Dwayne Wade did for the Redeem team. People forget in that gold medal game, if we don't have Dwayne Wade come off the bench, we don't win that gold medal game. I promise you that's the truth. So, what happened last year was we were very close to losing to France, and then my boy Steph came in and hit like four ridiculous threes that literally, if you watch the replay, like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and someone else, like a huge big time shooter, are wide open, and Curry takes a shot with like three French players trying to block him, and two of those guys are former defensive league MVPs for the NBA, and what's his name, Gobert or whatever, and the other guy, the Big 12, I can't remember his name. So like, to be honest with you, this series I was actually rooting for the Warriors because what Dwayne Wade did for the Team USA, I always liked the Heat, and what I never cared for the Warriors, and I hated Durant and the Warriors for making that team. But this year, I was like, you know what? I want Curry in the finals again just because of what he did for the USA team. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like that take.
Yeah, Curry and Dwayne Wade will always have special places in my heart for what they did for USA in those two pivotal years.
All right, well, let's talk about the other major championship going on. Then we can get to some football because you said you want to talk football. But real quick, let's just touch on hockey. So we got a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup. Last year was the Oilers versus the Panthers, and we have that exact matchup again. So they're running it back. You have arguably the best player in the NHL, and Connor McDavid on the Oilers, and the best team because they're defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers, on the other side. So this, on the other hand, should be a really good series. Edmonton has looked, quite frankly, pretty unstoppable in this playoff so far. Florida had one series go to 7. Other than that, they've made quick work of everybody. Edmonton lost their first 2 games to the Kings, and since then they've been on cruise control. So I don't know if you guys watch enough hockey to have any thoughts on this, but this should be interesting. And like I've pitched before, if you're an American, and you don't have a team, cheer for the American team. If you're Canadian, you don't have a team, cheer for the Canadian team, right? Canada hasn't hoisted Lord Stanley's Cup since the 90s, and I'd love to keep it that way.
Yeah, I've been randomly finding. I think ever since we started talking about it, I've been watching the Panthers Maple Leaf series. I watched extensively, and um, then found myself like it's one of those when you don't have a horse in the race, you just start watching and who you like get more excited for scoring versus not. So and then I just like randomly found myself rooting for the Panthers. So then because of that, I was like, ooh, who are they going to play in the East? And just saw the Oilers like steamroll the Stars. I think it's going to be a great matchup. I'm pulling for the Panthers. They've looked, even in that Maple Leaf series, even though it went to 7, they still looked like the better team, like the whole series. And they just absolutely destroyed the Hurricanes. Like it was just not close. But then on the flip side, the Oilers did the same thing to the Stars. So I think we're in for a very, very good Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I really want the Panthers to win. I'd love it to be easy on me and go 4-0. But yeah, this is the rematch of last year, and last year went to 7 games. So, I mean, this could be electric. This could be really fun to watch. So if you, like I keep saying, if you have never watched hockey before, I'd watch this. Should be interesting.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the 3rd straight trip for the Panthers, right? So
Yeah.
second, yeah. So Florida apparently. I mean, I just thought it was so funny that you had the Florida Panthers playing the Carolina Hurricanes in the Western Conference Finals, or the Eastern Conference Finals, where it's just like, wait, really? Like Florida versus. I'm assuming Carolina is somewhere in Charlotte. Maybe not. I don't even know where the Carolina Hurricanes play. But yeah, dude, just crazy to see like who these teams like. You had Dallas, Florida, Carolina, and then the only team that I think is what I would consider a hockey team would be the Oilers.
Yeah, well, and look at some of the other teams, right? You have the Golden Knights. They're in Vegas. I mean, the Jets are an expansion team. You know what I mean? Like, not hockey towns historically, right? So I mean, the Jets are in Winnipeg, but like they haven't had a team for a while. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And even the Panthers beating the Lightning, like Florida has been dominant in hockey. Like the Florida franchises have been dominant over the last decade or so, which is kind of interesting.
Speaking of expansion teams, whatever the NHL does for an expansion team should translate across sports because it is so exciting that every single time the NHL has an expansion team, they're like legit good for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
I know it kind
terrible.
of sucks at everybody else's expense because I think you're only allowed to like keep. Like I remember the Knights built like a super team like their very first year because they like poached the best, like literally.
They won the
players.
Stanley Cup in their 2nd or 3rd year of existence, which is just insane.
And they went to the finals in their first year. The problem is with that is I don't know much about hockey, but they're going to have like many documentaries and 30s for 30s for how the expansion teams work, and it's never going to be that way again. The problem is they were doing backdoor dealings, like so. Teams could only protect like 2 or 3 players. So then like basically your 4th best player is open. So what happens is they would be like, please don't take our 4th or 5th best player and we'll just give you picks and all these players. And so they were literally fielding like 5 teams worth of players and wheeling and dealing. So he'd call up, I forget his name, but for the Knights, he'd call up and be like, okay, we want this player and this player. And they'd be like, that's our 4th best player. Please don't take him. We'll give you these picks and this money compensation to where it wasn't how the NHL intended. He literally had so much value to work with that he wheeled and dealed all these players, and eventually some teams were like, wait, you're going to give me that for my 1st or 2nd best player who we originally protected? Okay, you can have him and we'll get all these players back in return. And it was like, that was like one of the worst things ever. That it can never ever be done again. Like, could you imagine if the NFL had an expansion team and they're like, NFL, you could protect 2 or 3 players. All right, so let's go to the 49ers. Who are you going to protect? McCaffrey and Purdy. All right, we're going to take Trent Williams and Fred Warner. See you later. It's like, what?
Yeah, but on the flip side, I mean, any expansion, like those of us that were around for like when Jacksonville came onto the scene, and granted, like Mark Brunell, like ended up turning that thing around. And then you have these MLB expansion teams at a certain point. Like, it just typically isn't good. Like, look what the Pelicans have done since they, all these back and forth moves. Like, expansion teams typically aren't good in sports for a while.
As should be.
So generating interest and then kind of the sustained success has been kind of fun to watch. Maybe there's a way to like meet in the middle where you like don't automatically become a super team, but I mean, here, you can't complain about the product they put out, though. Like, you get a brand new team in a brand new city where you want to build the market, and then they're freaking good. Like, that's exciting.
Okay, Vinny, you're the Raiders. Give me 2 players you're protecting.
Max Crosby and Max Crosby's shit that he takes.
Okay, Max Crosby's 1. Who are you taking?
I'd protect Crosby and Jinty then, probably.
All right, Brock Bowers is on my team. See you later.
Oh, shoot, I forgot about Bowers.
That's what I'm saying is you taking the 3rd best player off everyone's team. Do you know how stacked my team would be? Like that's
I thought it was that they could protect like 2 players at each position, like up to 8 or something.
I think the first one with the Knights or whatever was 3 players.
That's
it said
pretty
like it said one goalie. Okay, so the new rules is closer to what you said. It's like four skaters and four defensemen. So it's technically your eighth best player or whatever. So they have changed it. Good. And also only players through 2025-26 whose rights remain with the team could protect. So I have to reread, but they did change it. They did change it hard. And that's probably because of the backlash of the Knights.
Yeah, literally the top thing when I Google the Vegas Knights expansion draft is said they traded away all their picks and players for superstars.
That's what I was saying. So they were having backdoor deals. It's like the documentaries and 30 for 30s aren't gonna come out right away because the NHL is just begging, just like the Donaghy scandal in the NBA. Please don't release a documentary on this for like at least a decade. We're trying to get out from under this. The NHL's, I know it's not as big as scandal as betting, but it's the same way. They've been begging the media, please don't do this for 10 years and make us look bad. It's going to be one for the ages. The guy was taking like 12, 14 picks and turning it into one player. That's insane. And you can't do that because everyone was just giving you picks to protect their third, fourth, or fifth best player. So, yeah, no, I'm glad they did it. But I apologize. I would have to read more into it. I haven't read into that in probably like 6, 7 years. My hockey knowledge is very limited, I'll be honest.
Okay, the way that this reads said, but then it says the initial proposal of the rules, so I'm not sure what they finally settled on. But
Yeah.
it said
I would have to take
seven,
time to read all that.
one goaltender and eight skaters, regardless of position, or seven forwards, three defensemen, and one goaltender. I'm not sure, but it looks like each team had one, two, three, four, five, six, seven protected forwards, three protected defenses, and one goaltender.
Yeah, but that
Oh, but
says
then there's like some teams like the Islanders that only protected three forwards and then five defensemen and a goalkeeper. So
this wasn't that the rules for Seattle, those expansion, not the Knights? That's the changed rules, right? Or am I wrong?
this says the Knights. This says the Knights.
Oh,
So,
gotcha. Okay.
and it has like a list of who protected. So it was, but then that's I mean, one goaltender is brutal because some of these teams had like two. I mean, that's how they ended up with who was their
Flurry,
goaltender that they ended up with?
Flurry, because Murray
Fleury.
was the goalie for the Penguins when the Penguins were going to the finals every year with Crosby. They had two great goalies. Murray was the upcoming one, and Flurry was the amazing veteran.
Yeah. But sorry, definitely got off topic. I mean, I took us off topic from the finals, but
Okay, so I will say, which NHL team do you think has the most American players and how many?
the most American players,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with probably a team that's not that good. Let me go with the LA Kings.
With who?
The Kings.
Where are the Kings on this list? The Kings. Oh gosh, they're really far down there. Oh wow, I'm still scrolling. Hold on, Vinny. Um,
See, they were too good. They were too good.
Wait, must have passed them. It's not the Kings. Oh, they're
Not
14th. They're 14th
Alex.
with
You have
eight
one?
Americans.
That's just going to be completely random, right? Like the team with the most Americans. Because I mean, like there's teams there's like four Finnish dudes on the Stars. Like there's teams from all sorts of Scandinavian countries and things. I'm gonna go with just for the irony. I'm gonna pick a Canadian team to have the most American players. So let's go the Winnipeg Jets.
No. The Winnipeg Jets are. Why can't I find teams on here? The Winnipeg Jets are 10th with nine Americans.
Well, I thought you were just gonna pay off the question. Tell us who it is.
Oh, it's the Rangers with 12 Americans.
Okay.
And then the Panthers actually are up there with nine. And then the Edmonton are one of the lowest with five. So if
Wow.
you're rooting for American, it's okay to root for the Panthers in this one because Edmonton has 4 or 5 American players.
Yeah, I think
So,
their star player, uh, to Chuck he's an American, but has got a very Russian last name.
What is Connor McDavid American or is he Canadian?
He's Canadian.
Um,
So is Draisaitl, their second
Yeah.
best player.
I guess that would make sense because that's why it was such a big deal that the U.S. beat Canada in the that cup for that semifinal game because of McDavid and their team.
Yeah.
Edmonton Oilers have 19 Canadians, 3 Americans, 2 Swedes, 2 Finns, 1 Russian, 1 German.
I
like
mean,
how
if
his
that's not a
birthplace-
recipe for success.
I like
Say
this.
that
This
again,
is the goalie for the Panthers, by the way, Bobrovsky. I love this birthplace is USSR.
Oh, nice.
They've got 4 Finn. Wait, Hurricanes? No, I'm looking at the Panthers. Sorry, wrong one. Panthers.
Here we go, birthplace. Yeah,
Look,
Finland,
they have the
Canada,
night.
Sweden, Finland, Canada, Germany, Canada.
Scottsdale.
Yeah, that, like I said, But again, look at his last name. His dad.
Kachuk.
Yeah, his brother is also pretty good. Not as
Yeah.
good as them though.
They should have had more kids.
But yeah, Scottsdale, Arizona, not really a hockey town, but Connecticut. Then we got Latvia, Sweden. Oh, there's a Texas. in
Arlington,
there.
Texas.
Not only that,
Illinois.
check out this dude. Complexion, not a typical hockey guy. I like it.
Wow, he's from Texas hockey player. Talk about.
Oh yeah, dude, he's massive too. 6'4", 215. Just
Dude,
beast.
all these hockey guys are huge except for this guy. This one war right winger. It's 5'11". Everybody else
Is
is
it?
6'3"
They don't-
plus.
Their
Wait,
height's
how big
not on
is
skills, right?
Marchand? He's 5'9".
Who are we looking at?
Brad Marchand, their center.
He's old though.
Yeah, he is old.
Oh my
he's
God, he's
7.
5'9". I didn't realize hockey players were that tall across the board. Like, I would have signed up for the fact that he was like 5'6", 5'7".
Mitch, I like how we both said he's old. He's younger than both of us, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he is.
Born in
That's
May of
unfortunate.
'88.
He's like the exact same age as me, and like 5 months younger.
Oh my God, he's younger than I am
Yeah.
by 2 months. Yeah.
Oh well.
Dang.
Brad Marchand, let's go. Hold it up for the old guys. Let's do it.
Dude, could you imagine at our age right now strapping it up and getting on the ice? Hell no. Like, okay, if speaking of the decline of age, what is like one sport that you like would like, and it doesn't regardless of position, one sport you would not want to play at your age? I might sign up for hockey.
Football?
Dude, I don't think you realize how many hits there are in hockey.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like I think that'd be the one sport I don't want to play, like is hockey.
Oh,
like,
you don't
if
You're
want
I-
to
saying at
play.
this age you had to suit up for a sport. What's the last one you'd suit up for?
Yeah, the last one I would sit up for would be hockey.
I think it's got to be hockey or football. There's just nothing else like
I
that
mean,
comes close.
I don't know, man. Because here's the thing: in hockey and football, I can take a big hit and it'll hurt, and then I can have a reason for leaving the game and being on the bench. In soccer, they're just
no.
going to see like, hey, that fat guy's winded. We're 7 minutes into this 45-minute first half, and the right defenseman can't fucking
It should be a
move.
super sub.
Yeah.
All the 37-year-olds are super subs. They come in the 80th minute and run around for
Yeah.
like 10 minutes and try to score.
So
Alex would be right
for-
back like me in club soccer, Mitch, just
So-
pulling
oh, no.
people down
yeah,
by
so
their jersey.
just for the sake of not embarrassing myself, I'd say soccer. But no, realistically, and also like there's a skill gap. But yeah, so in this hypothetical scenario, let's assume we're skilled enough to play any of the sports. What would we not sign up for? I would still probably say football, just because at least hockey I get to be where it's cool inside. Football I'm out in the heat sometimes, and sometimes out in the freezing cold. At least hockey's the same temperature the whole time.
In basketball, at least, like there's like a ball dominant player who's really good on my team. They're usually going to leave me and double him on the screens and stuff, so I could get a couple open shots even at my age in the gym right now. So I'm not too worried about that.
I was always pretty good defender, and like in b-ball, you don't have to like look. If I can pull down a few boards, get a couple of points, and then play good D, like that's good enough for a roster spot. I don't need to go out there and drop 30. You know what I mean?
I don't think I've gotten a defensive rebound in 5 years at Balboa Park. I'm just saying. It's impossible to get rebounds. Those guys don't even jump. And they're just like, my rebound. And I'm over there like jumping as high as I can.
Well, I was gonna say, what are you, Mitch? Like 5'10"?
5'11", I hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to insult you. I'm just saying, like, I know you're not.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, you're not like super tall. Is the point I'm making?
For sure.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I think football is definitely a the second close, maybe even like a
What's
1A,
your
1B
position?
type situation. I just think like football, I don't know. Maybe I'm just more comfortable saying I could do football because I played historically. I'm just thinking like the skate, I just know how bad my ankles hurt from like going and skating around the freaking park every Christmas for, 10 minutes. You know what I mean? It's just like it's not easy to skate. You're getting hit. You're probably hitting that ice super hard rather than hitting the grass and getting hit by somebody. You're
So
taking pucks to the ribs and to the shins and the knees. I
it's
don't
the
know,
question
man.
becoming who's harder to be, Aaron Rodgers or LeBron James, and nothing to do with them personally, just or their nationality or whatever. Like who's harder to be, 40 years old in the NBA or 40 years old in the NFL?
Well, that and I'm just looking at the age of this roster. Like, you see 30-year-olds, albeit not regularly at like wide receiver and running back, but you get them on the offensive line, the defensive line, linebackers, safeties. There's like no 30-year-olds on this roster. Well, there's a couple down lower, but I guess.
Yeah.
But um,
Well, I also don't know like who. I don't know who all the big name like Barkov is a starter. He's one of their best players. He's 29, right? Like I know Chuck is one of the best players. He's 27. In hockey, you do run through four lines, right? Four lines on
For sure.
offense
Even a
and
checking
so
line.
like you are a lot of these guys are playing. It's also another reason I think I'd be more inclined to play something like hockey is you're only playing about a third of the game, right? Like you're playing about 20 minutes, and that's not to knock it. Like there's a reason for that. They're going so hard. They don't go because they go so hard when they're out there. They don't go more than 2 minutes at a time. Well, that's something I can do. I can give it 2 good minutes and then sit on the bench for another four to 5 minutes, right? Like I'm more inclined to be able to do that than be able to give you 45 minutes straight of me running back and forth. So I got those quick twitch commercials. I'm more of a sprinter than an endurance runner. You know what I'm saying?
Is goalie allowed to be in this conversation for soccer?
For soccer, okay. I thought you were going to say for hockey. Like the last
I'm
thing I
gonna
want,
pick. I'm gonna pick.
the last thing
Yeah,
I
no,
want is
definitely
pucks
not
blasted in my
hockey.
face, man.
Yeah, no, hell no for hockey, but for soccer, I'm only needed like 4 times a game.
Also, and like I don't know how accurate these weights are, right? But like, I want to point out, who the lightest player on this team is? Their starting goalie, Sergei Bobrovsky, is at a buck 80. That is
Usually
the
the
lowest
best
weight
athletes are the
listed.
goalies too.
No, they are, and that's what's funny. Like, because you see them in all those pads, so you think, oh, they're fat. Like that quote from Cartman, "I'm not fat, I just have a sweet hockey body." Well, no, like goalies are super athletic because they have to be.
All right.
All right, let's transition to some football talk then, boys. We've discussed hockey and made our jokes. So, Mitch, you said you might have some football stuff you want to talk about.
I do. I do. It's because I was gonna save it a little bit for more towards the end of this month, but since Vinny might be gone, it'll be good to think about over the month. But let me preface it real quick. It is now June, and we've got probably like 85, 80 days or whatever until kickoff. And so the question becomes for me personally as a fantasy manager, there's a lot of noise and a lot of forced media. How do you call this? Like you need a story, you know what I mean? So it's like there's going to be a lot of forced narratives by the media about teams over the next couple months, and oh, look at this guy in preseason. And a lot of the times it has no bearing whatsoever on the regular season. There are some things you need to pay attention to, but I would say 90% of preseason. So let's do our own media reactions real quick so we can decipher as the next couple months go on. And I do this almost every year, as far back as I can remember. It helps me with my narratives. So my narrative that I like to feel is like, okay, cool. You can grab Tua as a QB, but getting Tua that 1 year matters more than all the other years. How did Alex pick Tua that year? Or like Vinny says with Saquon Barkley, grabbing Barkley this year might be imperative as opposed to other years. How do you get him that year? As opposed to just chalking up drafting one player for 8 years in a row and getting their good years. So it's like if you alternate, oh, I'm going to get Adrian Peterson this year, I'm going to get Derek, picking that actual year. Who's another good player? Aaron Rodgers. How do you know when you're going to get the 37-year-old Aaron Rodgers or you're going to get the 38, which is a big difference between the two. So like picking and choosing the year that they're going to do good versus, oh, he's just a good player. So like, yeah, if you pick Barkley and you're like, okay, he's going to have 1,500, 1,400 yards or whatever, then that's not really analysts. It's like you want that guy on their good year. Well, what creates them to have those good years a lot of times is pressure. So let's do our own media analysis of it could be pressure of coach, pressure of team, pressure of player. It could be pressure of their narrative that's going to be about them this season. It could be pressure from money, financial reasons. It could be pressure of that comes down from the organization. Whatever that is, usually if you find the guy that's under a lot of pressure, that's the year he's going to have his outlier year and be better than what the average is. So I can start off by giving an example. Who has more pressure this year? And it could just be, we don't have to do more. We could just, this person has pressure or not. But if I asked you right now, who has more pressure this year? Mike Tomlin or John Arbaugh? What would you answer?
John Arbaugh, not to be confused with John Harbaugh, right?
Oh, so the head coach of the
John
Ravens, what did
Arbuckle,
I say?
Garfield's owner. I mean, he's under a lot of pressure with Garfield and Odie. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility for
We
sure.
watched the Garfield recently with Chris Pratt. It's pretty funny. Side note, but the head coach of the Ravens or the head coach of the Steelers,
No, I knew
who
what your
has
actual
more
question
pressure
was.
this year?
That
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was thinking out loud.
Oh, I think it's the head coach of the Ravens. I don't think it's close. The Steelers head coach, Mike Tomlin, has had nothing but winning seasons since he got there, period. He's going to go down as a GOAT because of that. One of them, I'm not saying the GOAT. He has had so much success, it's unreal. And as it stands, when he has no quarterback, there are almost no expectations. Like, yes, the Steelers want to win, but like it's not like we don't know the whole situation about why they don't have a quarterback right now. I doubt it's no one's going to be able to say, well, Tomlin didn't want to sign a quarterback, so they don't have one. No, like the front office is involved in that decision too. If they go out next year and they suck, no one's going to blame Mike Tomlin for the Steelers sucking. They'll be mad at the Steelers for not going and getting a quarterback, your boy Aaron Rodgers or whoever else, but no one's going to be like, oh, they suck because of Mike Tomlin. Whereas you have Lamar Jackson, who is one of the most special players of all time in his prime, and the window is only going to close on a player like that. It's not going to open, right? You're running out of time, and so if they don't make it happen in Baltimore sooner rather than later, I think they're going to be looking to make a change at coach, because what else do you change? You got to change
right.
something.
You can't change Lamar.
Yeah, exactly. You're not changing Lamar. You're not changing the run game. Like, you got to change something, and so the head coach is the natural place to make a change.
I agree. That's why I'm looking for the Ravens not to have a fallback here, because Arbaugh's not going to let this year go by and have the narrative be about him. Is he going to be out the door or not? I agree. What's Vinny? What do you think?
No, I was gonna say I was looking at it more from like a job standpoint because a lot of the talk has been Tomlin's already on the chopping block, but I think from that perspective, like the only thing that kept me in the conversation for Harbaugh was the fact that like he has too good of a team to not win a Super Bowl, and that window is. I think that's the interesting thing. We don't even know when that window closes. Like we knew when the window closes on guys like Rodgers, Brady, Breeze. Cousins, like not Cousins is a terrible example, but these like pocket quarterbacks is like 40, window
Right.
closes at 40 years old. But where does the window close on a guy like Lamar, who's the first of his kind to do it?
Anytime.
Do we compare him to Cam? Cam's window closed at what, 29, 30 years old because of like what his skill set is. So like is Lamar's window shorter than everybody else's? I don't know. So I think from that perspective it has to be Harbaugh, right?
Who has more pressure? Arbaugh or Sean McDermott?
There is an H in his name.
Sorry. Well, how do you Harbaugh?
Harbaugh.
Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Whatever. There was a kid who I grew up with who played soccer, and his last name was Arbaugh or whatever. And I think Vinny probably knows him or whatever. But
Yeah.
he was the quarterback for a little bit, right, at Palm Desert.
I think McDermott, because they keep getting bounced early in the playoffs.
See,
McDermott
yeah.
or Arbaugh? Harbaugh.
I have to go hard. I think that they still have built a better team in Baltimore than they have in
Oh no,
Buffalo.
I completely agree. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying that the optics, like the Bills are just the perennial team that gets close and can't overcome, and I just think they're going to have less patience than a team like Baltimore, because Baltimore has at least won in the past, whereas
Yeah.
the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost them all, right? Since then they didn't go back to the Super Bowl until they've kind of been mediocre until they finally got Josh Allen, and now they're great again, and they get to the playoffs and they're a great regular season team and a bad playoff team.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah, I mean
saying
that's actually a very good. I mean, I guess the answer is both, and so neither one of them's going to have a down year.
who has more pressure because of the coordinator change? Baker Mayfield or Trevor Lawrence?
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is playing for his job. Baker is not.
But Trevor Lawrence had that pressure last year, in my opinion, and was
Nothing
not
happened.
good to start the year.
No, and he
I don't
should,
know
and he
who.
probably
I
should
don't
have
know
lost
who
his
would
job, right? But he
trade for
didn't. So
Trevor Lawrence in fantasy football.
that's the thing.
Okay, who has more?
There's no one
Sorry.
who, in the last 2 years, not a single person, or rather, not a single sane person, has wondered if if Baker's job is on the line. If anything, the rhetoric has been, "Wow, the Browns really are stupid for letting him go. They could have had a franchise quarterback. His rookie year, he took them to the playoffs, and now
For
look
sure.
how bad their situation is."
For sure.
Whereas
Baker
with Trevor
doesn't do
Lawrence,
well.
it's like,
Yeah.
when do you move on? And I think the only reason they haven't moved on is because they've got so much money locked in him that they're the whole sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
Who's got more pressure? So you said Trevor was the answer, right? Who's got more pressure, Trevor or Herbert? They're not firing the other Harbaugh.
I would think Herbert. I don't know. I'm at the point where I think Trevor Lawrence has pressure, but he hasn't answered that bell for like 2 years. So I want to say Herbert because I think his skill set. I think he's just a better quarterback and still isn't winning. Um, so I think Herbert has a tremendous amount of pressure,
I still think
especially
it's
since
Lawrence.
they've been drafting to build his team.
I get what you're saying, but like, here's the thing: if Herbert doesn't work out and San Diego decides to move on from him, he will get a job elsewhere, just like Drew Brees did, just like Phillip Rivers did, just like all these other guys that move on when they aren't really fitting the bill. Derek Carr did. Like, these guys that aren't fitting the bill in the AFC West, and they move on and they get Russell Wilson. They move on and they get signed elsewhere, right? So I think he will move on and get signed elsewhere as a starter. Whereas if the Jags, who have been very patient with Trevor Lawrence, because that's how the Khan family is, whenever they decide to finally move on from Trevor Lawrence, I don't think anyone's signing him to be a starter. I think it's going to be more of like a Danny Dimes situation where he is paid decently, but to be a backup or to help sit behind a rookie or a young talent. They're not signing him to be a starter anywhere else. So I think when Trevor Lawrence loses his starting job in Jacksonville, that is the end of Trevor Lawrence as a starting NFL quarterback, unless someone happens to get hurt in the middle of the season. Whereas if Herbert loses his job as the starter in San Diego, I think he's a starter somewhere else in a year or two.
Okay, well, this is a sub question that will lead into comparing with Herbert, but who's got more pressure, Tua Tagovailoa or Mike Daniels? McDaniels.
Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, I don't think there's pressure on Tua because like Tua's issue isn't his skill. Now, I mean, there is a bit of an issue when he plays in cold weather environments, which has come up, but like his issue has never been his skill. It's his ability to stay healthy, right? And no one really blames you for like, hey, you've suffered some gruesome injuries and that sucks, but like people don't hold that against you so much. They may move
He's
on
got
from you
$55 million
because
contract. Sorry, go on.
right. They may have to move on from him because of injuries, but I don't think there's pressure for him to perform. It's more of a concern that he'll stay healthy. Whereas there's pressure on the coach to get the roster to where they want it to be and to get the team success to where they want it to be, especially in a division where, look, the Bills have Josh Allen, but they have a lot of weak spots in that roster as well. The Jets are the Jets. They're garbage. The Patriots are just a trash can fire. So, like, you're in a very winnable division. And as the coach, you need to lead them to promised land.
Who's Vinny? McDaniels over Tua?
Oh yeah, I don't think for me. It's McDaniel's. I think they've loaded him with offensive talent, and last year was so. I mean, they haven't beat anybody good in 2 years. Even though their record was good 2 years ago, they literally only beat teams with less than a 500 record. So I just don't think they're a real candidate. I think McDaniel's has so much on the line this year, and if they don't compete in the East or make a playoff appearance, then he's gone.
Okay, who has more pressure? The Harbaugh of the Ravens or McDaniels?
I would still say, I don't know, because the stakes are different. Like
It's so
Harbaugh,
hard.
Harbaugh needs to win a Super Bowl. McDaniels just needs to like have a winning record, you know?
Sure.
So
The stakes are different, but the question is pressure. Pressure could come from anything. It could be come from owners, it could come from team, it could come from the narrative that the media makes up. It could come from contracts. One of the most obvious one is pressure of money, right? So if a guy's in a contract year, that's we could take that out. But yeah, I'm just these are hard answers that I always try and decide over the off season, and that's when I try and pick that player this year. That's why I always give Alex the credit. Man, you got two on that year. That's not a knock that I think Alex got lucky one year that two is good. No, that's a great pick in my opinion. How did you decipher that year you were going to go to Tua? And I think the pressure conversation helps out picking those years. So there's no right or wrong answer, Vinny. It's just your opinion.
yeah.
Well, to answer your question, then, Mitch, I would say in that scenario Harbaugh because the stakes are higher, right? Sure, that they both may be under pressure to keep their job. However, Harbaugh has an opportunity to win a Super Bowl with his roster, and if he
Correct.
doesn't succeed, he might not only lose his job, but lose his only chance to go to a Super Bowl because who knows when the next job opens up that wants him. Other teams are going to hire him, but usually teams that are hiring coaches aren't great teams, right?
Are bad teams, right.
Teams don't go, 12-4 and then the next year look to hire a new coach, generally speaking. I mean, it can happen, but it's rare, right? Usually the team hiring a new coach went 4-12, or I guess, 4-13 now they played more games. So I think there's more for him to lose because it's an opportunity. That window is closing, whereas if the Dolphins coach loses his job, yeah, that sucks, and maybe he'll get an opportunity later on, but no one's looking at the Dolphins this season saying that might be a Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
It would just be
Actually,
harder for the Dolphins
interesting
to
is
get to a playoff game and win it to keep Daniel's job as it might be easier for Harbaugh to get to a Super Bowl and win it. It's the sad
Yeah.
part.
It's also interesting to think with the Steelers quarterback situation might also directly affect Harbaugh's pressure, right? I don't even think Aaron Rodgers is good, but he's for sure better than Will Howard or Mason Rudolph. So
I'm surprised you
the
guys.
the
Sorry.
the Browns are going to be bad.
Yeah.
The Bengals have to be better this year, but who knows? Their defense was abysmal last year and it didn't really get much better throughout the season. Um, Speaking of which, I think Zach Taylor has probably the most pressure in the AFC North with the Bengals. They've
My-
been to a Super Bowl in the Joe Burrow era. Harbaugh hasn't even been to a Super Bowl, and they missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. That's
my
Zach Taylor's got a ton of pressure.
For sure. My question to you is, and this goes on the Zach Taylor and Tomlin, because you guys both picked Harbaugh, and I actually, in my mind, picked Tomlin. My question to you guys is, how much does a head coach pick his personnel? So, on draft day, how much does Tomlin have a say in who they take in the second or third round? Or in free agency, how much does Tomlin have a say in actually bringing in Rodgers? That's an honest, genuine question to you both.
I mean, I think it's different for every team and every coach, right? Bill Belichick got basically to pick and choose everything he wanted in New England, whereas other coaches, for example, the head coach in Dallas probably has zero say in what the Cowboys do, right?
If that's the case, Alex, if that's the case, then how is Tomlin not under pressure for not having a serviceable QB for 15 years? If he's making all the decisions, he's chosen to put most of the contract salary cap money.
That's not what
No,
I said.
I'm saying. No, I'm just saying if he has said in picking, I know you're saying it depends on the coach. Well, I'm saying let's say Tomlin has total autonomy like a Bill Belichick because in my opinion he's just as good as a Bill Belichick, right? So let's say Tomlin has
to answer your
total
question,
autonomy.
it's because we don't know, right? If
Right.
there was a report out there that Tomlin has complete say in personnel decisions, then yeah, there's a lot more pressure on him because then it becomes, well, why have you made the decisions you've made to not go and get one of these free agent quarterbacks
In 15
or not,
years, yeah,
not
why
move
not?
up and take picks? So sure, absolutely, but without knowing how much say he has, I can't sit here and be like, oh, well,
Sure.
it's Tomlin's fault the Steelers don't have a quarterback because my gut is that he does have some say in the decision because of how successful he has been. But
True.
at the end of the day, businessmen are going to make business decisions. So the owners are going to have the final say and their GM. And so it's different for every organization. So without knowing for sure how much say he has, I can't say oh, well, it's his fault. Well, he may have no say at all. It may be a Cowboy situation. They just don't advertise it the way Jerry Jones does, right? So I don't think that's what it is, but that's why there's less public pressure. Now, internally, privately, there may be pressure, right? Because if he does get to make all the decisions, the management of the Steelers know that, right? So privately there may be a ton of pressure, but publicly, in the public eye,
very good.
No one I know, other than maybe you now, and this is the first time I heard you say it, no one that I know is out there saying, man, if only Mike Tomlin would get the Steelers a quarterback. They're saying, oh man, if only the Steelers would get a quarterback. They're not blaming Tomlin for them not having one.
Agreed. I'm wondering how that, but then you pick and choose other, like, why haven't, other person went and got a QB, good for them, or someone, that's what I'm saying. It's like, kind of like, so I don't know how much. Agreed.
And here's the point I want to say on that really quick is, one, I don't think Mike Tomlin, well, I don't know how much say he had in bringing Arthur Smith in, but that was a terrible hire by all accounts and purposes. And the fact that he's still there is absolutely wild to me. He absolutely ruined the Falcons offense. So it's kind of crazy. But then on the flip side of that is, I think when you're talking about quarterback, like, they tried to fill that gap with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Why they didn't re-sign one of them is beyond me. I don't understand, like, why you wouldn't try to keep one of them. But I don't necessarily think, I think he's a victim of his own success. Like, he hasn't had a losing season in 13 years. You don't draft winning quarterbacks in the later half of the first round typically. Like, they went with Kenny Pickett. He was the first overall quarterback taken in that draft, and he wasn't very good because they took him like the 20th position. That's why I'll always think that what the freaking Patriots did with Drake May in the last draft, and they're like, no, we're not trading this pick. Like, we don't plan on ever being here again. We're getting our quarterback, is such a genius move. Or maybe why the Falcons drafting Penix when nobody thought they'd do that was such a genius move, because if you're up that high and you had a bad year, that's your chance to grab a quarterback. You don't grab a quarterback at 20th, 30th, 40th and hope that that's going to turn your franchise around.
I mean, the absolute irony of that being that both Patrick Mahomes and
Chiefs, Alex Smith.
Well, no, I was going to say both Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson were late first round draft picks. But no, Vinny's point is absolutely correct. Like, the fact that Tomlin hasn't had a losing season means they've never had a pick in the first half of the draft in his entire tenure.
You can trade up.
When are they supposed to get a quarterback? And Big Ben was like a fifth round pick, third round pick? What was he? He wasn't a first rounder.
Hear me out real quick. Everyone attributes Andy Reid to the Mahomes pick. The year before they went to the AFC divisional round, they had Alex Smith, who was second in MVP voting, and they were picking 28th, and they moved all the way up to 12. So, and everyone's like, wow, look how good Andy Reid did. Attached Andy Reid's on scholarship, the opposite of pressure, because of just one move. Like, so I'm just saying is, like, we tie a lot of times these QB picks to the head coach moving up, moving down, but all of a sudden Tomlin in 15, 17 years hasn't had one B plus QB.
Yeah.
That's actually wild to me.
What's interesting to think about, how bad would the 49ers be if Brock Purdy didn't hit? I wonder if that's where some of that contract came in. Like, they traded their future away for Trey Lance and got so lucky that Purdy actually ended up being really good.
See, that's where I disagree a little bit.
That franchise would be in shambles without Purdy.
I agree, yes and no, but I think they were doing well with Connor Brethard, and they went to a Super Bowl with Connor Brethard or whatever, and Jimmy Garoppolo, they went to 2 Super Bowls. So as long as you're not worse than Jimmy G, I think the Niners could have always, and Shanahan's calling the plays, I think they could have found a QB. Maybe not that year. Maybe Trey Lance takes a hit, obviously. Trey Lance will get a 4 start and do bad, but the next year, I'm pretty confident in that organization and Kyle Shanahan getting a Brock Purdy type person. Maybe not as good as Purdy. Don't get me wrong. Purdy's might be better than I think. But, I mean, they were winning with Connor Brethard and Jimmy G, and nobody could win with Jimmy G.
Right, but I think it's just a matter of being able to win football games by running the ball and playing defense is great. Like, that's a great skill to have. But having a quarterback that can win you games and not just not lose them for you is equally, if not more important. There are so many teams out there that they've had the quarterback who their job is just to not lose the game. They're the game manager type. And they have good seasons and they go to the playoffs, but they never win at all, right? Other than like the Ravens with Elvis Grbac, right? Like that's like the last time that's happened where a team
Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, like outside of the Ravens, like when's the last time a team that had a game manager QB who cannot go win a game won the Super Bowl? Because even Joe Flacco, he was a game manager most of his career. That playoff run, Joe Flacco balled out and won the games, right?
What about Big Ben?
What about Big Ben was a baller, right?
Oh, okay.
Like in the playoffs, right? He'd throw for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, but yeah, there are also games where he'd throw for 120 yards and 1 TD in the regular season. But he had the ability to ball when it was time. Whereas I don't think there was never a point with Beathard or with Jimmy G where you're like, hey, give that guy the ball, he can go throw the rock and get us a touchdown.
Yeah, I just want to fact check Mitch really quick. Connor Beathard had a 2-10 record while a starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. So.
I was going to say, I don't remember him.
I think he was 2-10 career, but they went.
I'm pretty
sure
career.
he played with him.
So we're only talking about the 2 then?
He's 3-10 career. In 2017, he was 1-4. In 2018, he was 0-5, and then in 2020, he went 1-1. So in the 2 years where they needed him, he was 1-9.
Connor Beathard was an exaggeration. There was a guy ahead of him when Jimmy G got hurt. He was like the 4th-string quarterback. If you
was it Nick Mullins?
Yeah, Mullins, and there was one other that he won some games with. They went through like 3. I was making a joke with Beathard. Thank you for fact checking me though, but it was more of when Jimmy G got hurt. They were a favorite to win a Super Bowl without a quarterback, and they brought in like 3 different guys. Nick Mullins.
So in 2018, the same year that Beathard went 0-5, Nick Mullins was 3-5.
Okay, and did they not go to the like playoffs that year, and then the year after with Jimmy G?
Well, in 2018, considering that's a combined 3-10 record, I'm going to say no playoffs in 2018.
They've been
I don't know
like
who it
5.
was
You're
in
going
2017.
so far back. They went and culminated in Super Bowl in 2019. A year later, with Jimmy G, they went to the Super Bowl. So how much better is Jimmy G than Connor Beathard, and then how much better is Brock Purdy than Jimmy G?
Yeah, they were 13-3 in 2019 with Jimmy G.
That's what I'm saying. So like I was over exaggerating a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is like I don't necessarily know how much Purdy saved them as much as Shanahan knows what to do. Like what if Purdy's drafted in the 6th round or whatever to the Jaguars? Is Purdy the starting QB?
With as good as Trevor Lawrence has been playing, maybe.
Okay, well then what if he's drafted to who's another terrible organization? The Panthers. Is he a starting QB?
Probably not. Did you see what they did to poor Bryce Young his rookie year?
But that's all I'm saying is there's got to be some Shanahan and Niners percentage, whether it's 20%, 30%, 40%, or what I believe to be all the way up to like 75%. There's got to be a range in there.
I mean, I agree with that.
There is, Mitch, but the counterpoint is the Niners have been much more successful with Brock Purdy than they were with Jimmy G, Trey Lance, Connor Beathard, etc. So there's a non-zero amount that's Purdy. And if you're in the Niners front office and you're like, okay, we can have a playoff team based on how good our coach, defense, and running game is, or we could have a potential Super Bowl championship team if we combine that with a quarterback.
So in 2020, what was Mullins' record?
1-1, I think.
Okay, and what was Beathard's record in 2020?
2020? I don't know. I don't think I went that far back. In 2020, the Niners went 6-10, so it obviously wasn't very good.
Yeah. So there are a 500 team with C.J. Beathard. Like Jimmy G is significantly better than Beathard for sure, but how much better is Purdy than Jimmy G? That's my question. But anyways, we're getting a little off topic. Who has more pressure here, Tua or Herbert?
Tua.
No, again, I think I don't think there's any pressure on Tua to perform. I think Tua needs to stay healthy, and I don't think that's a pressure thing. That's just can he stay healthy? Because it's not like there's nothing he can do. It's not like he's not protecting himself, right? There's no amount of training or practice you can do that if someone hits you from the blind side and you get folded up like an accordion, that you're not going to snap in half when you're a small person like he is, right? So I understand what you're saying. You got a big contract. He's getting paid. I don't think it's an issue because no one is saying like, oh, Tua's overpaid because he's not playing well. No, they're saying you spent too much money on him because he can't stay healthy. Well, there's nothing you can do to prevent against a freak injury. That just happens, right?
So my question to you, Alex, is if he doesn't stay healthy this year, is he still a QB of the Dolphins?
Depends on what the issue is. If it's concussions, no. if
So his pressure is just to don't get hit in the head.
yeah, like if someone goes low and hits him in the knee and he tears his ACL, like that sucks. I don't think he loses his job over that, right? Because like he's not a running quarterback. It's not his arm. It's not his head. Whereas if he has yet another concussion problem, or like one of those big shoulder injuries that you know for a fact they're going to suck the next year, like all those quarterbacks that have those like neck and shoulder injury, and like the next year they're never the same. It takes at least a year to come back, and then you're paying him $50 million for 2 years effectively that he doesn't play or can't play well. Like then we're looking at maybe him losing his job.
Who, Vinny, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I just think Tua needs to. I really think the pressure is more on McDaniels than anybody else in that organization. It's really weird to think that like Herbert has pressure, but like I just think the Chargers. I don't know. The Chargers are going to charger. The Chargers have chargered for like 30 years. So like, how can we expect them to actually win eventually? You know what I mean? It's weird to like think that there's pressure there.
Who's got more pressure, the Lions organization or the Bears organization?
Wow.
What do you mean by the organization? Like,
what's the narrative going to be from the media of the team? Let's say if the Lions have a bad year or the Bears have a bad year, is the media going to pile on the Bears? Are they going to pile on the Lions, or are they going to let them go?
I think the Bears. The Bears have just been mediocre ever since what Rex Grossman, and he wasn't any good, right? Like they haven't been good for like so long.
What was the other guy's name? Orton, or what was the other guy's name? I forget.
Yeah, Orton.
Kyle Orton.
Yeah, like they have not. And the reason, by the way, the reason I mentioned Rex Grossman is because he took him to the Super Bowl, not because he's good. Just for clarity.
No, for sure.
But yeah, just the Bears have been so bad for so long, so unsuccessful, and they've gone out and they spent a ton of money and brought in all these offensive weapons to surround Caleb with, and they've drafted Caleb and they've done all this. There's a lot of pressure on them. Whereas the Lions were the laughingstock of the NFL for so long. And then last year, they had a dream season. Like, they're going to come back down to earth. That's not going to happen again. I think I told you guys last year they didn't play any games outside, or like one game outside all year. It's like something wild. Like, it's a crazy stat. They played almost all their games in a dome. Like, that's not going to happen. They lost a coordinator. They're going to come back down to earth. But even then, I think they've built up a ton of goodwill with their community because they gave them that season last year. That even if they, become an 8, I mean, I don't think they're going to fall away to 8-8. But let's say they fall away down to 8-8. Like, I still think that, yeah, there'll be stories about it, but the fans aren't going to hate them for it because of what they did from the previous year. Whereas the Bears fans have been waiting since, what was that year? Was it like 2006? Like, when did the Bears go to the Super Bowl? Like, it's been a minute.
Something like that. 8-6, something like that.
It's been a minute. And not the Super Bowl. Like, when's the last time the Bears even made the playoffs? You know what I mean? Like, let's see.
For sure.
Last time Bears made playoffs. They made the playoffs in the 2020 season, and they lost that game 21-9. Like, so it's been 5 years since they even made the playoffs, and they're in a division where all three teams in their division are significantly better than them.
Who has more pressure? Penix Jr. or J.J. McCarthy?
McCarthy.
Yeah, McCarthy. I'm starting to realize that, Alex, I think Mitch is just he's over there taking notes and like editing his draft board right now.
I already have answers. You want me to give the answers to them? I'll give you the answers. I was having fun being the host.
No, and
I have answers.
No, you can be the host. I host all the time. I'm happy not being the host. No, so I think Vinny and I are both on the same page, JJ McCarthy. So Penix was drafted to, eventually take the reins from Cousins. He ended up taking them a little sooner than expected, but Cousins played really poorly. Cousins was on a monster deal and played terribly, whether it's because he's come back from injury or whatever. Like, he didn't replace anyone that was good. He came in, he replaced a bad situation. The Falcons had no QB. They brought in an old veteran. The old veteran didn't work out, so they basically have no QB. There's pressure on him to do well because he's a high draft pick, but the normal pressure of a high draft pick. Whereas McCarthy, that's a team
is in so much trouble.
That was wildly successful last year, and they let their quarterback walk after how great he played for them. You let that quarterback walk, and you come in and you suck, that's a problem. Because the people that are on board with this, people like you, Mitch, who it's all about the coach and the offense and whatnot. Yep. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. That's your standpoint, and I get it, and you may be right. But like because of that, because you're on that bandwagon, if you're wrong and the organization is wrong, the organization has taken a massive step backwards.
Massive hit.
A massive step backwards. Not only just with the fan base for letting him walk, but just now they're kind of screwed because now they don't have a quarterback because they let the last one walk. And
who has more pressure?
Especially if Darnold, even if JJ plays okay, if Darnold plays really well in Seattle, you still look like a fool.
For sure. 100%. Vinny?
No, I agree. I think it's JJ McCarthy. I agree with Alex's take that that's going to be the narrative. I also disagree with the public perception. I think last year what the Vikings did with Darnold was an outlier versus Darnold actually being that good. But that's not saying, I just disagree with that perception. I'm not saying that Alex's opinion is wrong, because that is the perception, and that is, and I think especially if Darnold does really well in Seattle, I think that obviously like Alex said, that'll definitely add to it. But I think there's just way more pressure on JJ McCarthy based on what the Vikings have done with even look what they did with Dobbs. Like, Dobbs was good for them the first few games. Like, they're just really good at quarterback carousel, so they better be good with JJ McCarthy.
Okay, we'll table that. We both said McCarthy. We'll come back to him. Who has the winner of this one will face off against McCarthy? Who has more pressure? Caleb Williams or the Texans QB?
Or CJ Stroud? Wow, that's really good.
If you don't want me to be the host for a second, like, they've given Caleb everything in the world. Everything he could possibly need.
But I mean, the Texans also just traded for Christian Kirk and then drafted wide receivers in the back-to-back in the second and third round, I think. So,
and what would the narrative be if he has another average to below average year of
and signed Stephon Diggs last year, right? I mean, got hit by injuries to like Nico Collins. I agree. This is why it's really tough. Like, I think Caleb Williams should be the easy answer, but CJ Stroud had a hell of a rookie year and fell off the face of the earth his sophomore year. So
he could be in a lot of trouble if he doesn't have a good year this year.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I'm curious to what Alex thinks.
Between those two?
Yep. Yeah. Caleb and Stroud.
Oh, it's definitely Caleb. Stroud has money in the bank, right? Like, Stroud had a bad year last year compared to his first year, and they still made the playoffs, right? So, like, Stroud's got a lot of clout in the bank right now, whereas Caleb doesn't. He came in as a rookie. We thought he'd suck. He did. Year two, you better suck less in year two. They've gone out and they spent even more money improving the team around you. Like, they spent a ton of money to give you all the things you need. You better not suck.
So who's got more pressure then? Caleb. And also, the only thing I would ask her, I would counter Alex, is that expectations of Stroud are much higher because of that money in the bank or whatever, that I think it could create more pressure. Whereas Caleb could have another bad year and they're like, oh, we're just developing him. I'm not sure. Who has more pressure?
I would also argue, though, that Caleb has more pressure because CJ Stroud was taken second behind Bryce Young and then ahead of Anthony Richardson, right? So the pressure in that draft is
compounded.
CJ Stroud is definitely the best one, and he was taken later. But then you have Caleb Williams was taken over Drake May, over Jaden Daniels, over Penix, over JJ McCarthy, over Bo Nix, and there's a chance that all of them are going to have success. So I maybe think that might I guess I'll just say Caleb Williams, even though I think CJ Stroud maybe got bumped into an elite tier before he was ready for it. So
that's huge pressure. Yeah. What? Okay, so now the two winners. Who has more pressure?
But sorry, just comment on what Vinny just said. I think Stroud alleviated some of his own pressure by playing a lot worse last year, right? Because
true.
Obviously, look, it's bad if he takes another step back, but like, when you take two small steps back, it doesn't seem as bad as one giant step back, right? So like, if he took a small step back and then this year he plays about as well as he did last year, that's just gonna be like the new normal for him. And that's still fine. Whereas, because of how well he played his first season, had he not played medium this season and then had a big drop off, it'd be much more noticeable. I just think he's got, like I said, he's got a little bit in the bank with that fan base and with that organization because of what he did his first year and even the second year by going to the playoffs.
Who's got more pressure, Caleb Williams or J.J. McCarthy?
Caleb Williams for me.
Even if Darnold does well in Seattle?
Yeah, I just think the expectations are sky high for, I mean, dude, just like Alex said, and like what you said earlier, look at what Chicago has done even before they drafted Caleb Williams, right? So you you have DJ Moore on the roster, but then you're already making moves by signing Keaton Allen. And then after that, you go ahead and you draft Roma Dunze. Then you draft Loveland. You sign. What'd they do for their running back hole? I can't remember who they went out and got. DeAndre Swift, right? So like they've just been loading up offensive talent. Then they draft Luther Burden in the second round this time, so they take two offensive skill players. I just think there's what they've done to that franchise and how they've built their roster is really trying. They're trying way too hard for Caleb to succeed. That if he doesn't, it's all failed, right? Because you wasted so much draft capital on offensive players.
Yeah, and to piggyback a little bit, it's more so on Caleb than McCarthy because a lot of the pressure on McCarthy isn't on him as much as it's on the organization and the coach for making the decision that they made to move on. It's not like McCarthy traded or let Darnold walk, right? Mm-hmm. The organization made that decision, not him. Also, even though both of these players are coming into their second year, only one of them has played. McCarthy is going to be an effective rookie. Yes, it's his second year, but he was hurt. He didn't play the first season. This is his first season playing. Caleb, it's his second. So Caleb is going to be expected to improve over the previous year, whereas there is no benchmark yet for McCarthy, right? If McCarthy comes in and sucks the first half of the season, but the last few games you start to see some improvement, that gives you hope for the future. Whereas if Caleb comes in and sucks the first half of the season, that's a huge red flag because now you're a season and a half into this guy's career and he still blows.
He still blows.
I have one more point on that, Alex, that I just kind of thought of. Sorry, Mitch, I know you probably want to say something too. But
no, I just didn't want to keep it to the 6 p.m. cutoff. My bad. That's all.
No, you're good. So
I do this all night.
If I look at it this way, J.J. McCarthy is walking into a team with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. They did not draft or trade for those players with J.J. McCarthy in mind. They drafted and traded for those players with offense in mind. The Bears drafted, signed, and traded for DeAndre Swift, Cortland Loveland, Keenan Allen, Luther Burden, Roma Dunze, all with Caleb Williams in mind, right? So everything that they've done for that offense is to set Caleb up to succeed, where J.J. McCarthy is just a byproduct of the system. Like, he's coming into a very successful offense. They didn't build it specifically for him to succeed. It was just already in place.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this. Yeah. This is a new signing. This is a drafted rookie. I'm not sure about the O-line, but I think at least one of these guys is new. So like you're talking about a significant portion of this offense has been overhauled for Caleb, whereas like Vinny was saying, there's no one who's currently on the Minnesota offense. I guess you could maybe argue that Aaron Jones, because he was brought in last year when they expected McCarthy to be the starter. He's the only one that was brought in to go with McCarthy, right? Because the rest of the
but even then, I mean, I think they had a running back need. I'm not sure if they thought because
I agree with you there. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't even remember who they had before Aaron Jones, outside of the AP year.
They had Alexander Madison, who was the Raiders running back last year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Madison and Chandler. Yeah, it was just bad.
Yeah, because Jefferson was already there, Addison was already there, Hawkinson they'd already gotten him in there. So yeah, the only new person would have been Aaron Jones.
So when I did it, I concluded the same thing. Went through all the teams, pressures, and all that, and I came up with what Vinny basically came up with earlier was realizing. So it's not that I'm taking information, I'm giving you information, but out of Mike McDaniels, Shane Steichen, Brian Dabble, and Zach Taylor, who has the most pressure this year?
Do you mispronounce names on purpose, or do you just not know his name is Brian Daboll?
Dabble, dable, whatever.
Mitch just does all the reading. He doesn't actually like listen to it, so he never hears it said. He's just back there like data mining like fantasy magazines and articles and
Or why
creating
isn't
this
it?
Yeah,
Why doesn't he have
he still gets his
emphasis on
information
that?
from Barnes and Noble. From Borders. He walks into old Borders stores and sees the fantasy football mags on the rack, and that's where he gets his info from.
Well, why can't you just have an easier name like Zach Taylor? Come on now, like we don't need to.
You mean Zach
Okay,
Taylor?
Oh my god, I was just gonna say that.
And then you have a hard name like Shane, whatever you Steichen.
Yeah, I don't know how you got Steichen right, and then you got
That's because he's been around
Dayball
those
wrong.
Eagles years when he was going to the Super Bowl. So who's got more pressure? McDaniels, Steichen, Giants head coach, or Zach Taylor?
that's actually a really good lineup.
Those are my top four. And then I put Tomlin fifth, to be honest.
I mean, Dayball was originally brought in as the Giants head coach to be a quarterback guru.
Yeah.
And
he has no
he was
quarterback?
such a good quarterback guru that they let Danny Dimes go. So if he doesn't do a good job with Jackson Dart, who everyone considers to be a pretty big like project, like I do think I think he had the best long-term potential out of everyone in the draft, quarterback wise. But he was going to be a project. I don't think he's ready to be a day one starter, and that's what he's going to have to be. I mean, James Winston maybe day one, but you know what I'm saying. Like, so I think.
So is he good as fired?
I
think keep his
I'm not
job?
going to say he's good as fired because, like, if he does a good job with Jackson Dart, I think he keeps his job, right? But like, you can't be brought in as a QB guy and then not be able to fix Danny Dimes, trade up to draft a quarterback in the first round, and not have that quarterback in the first round show promise. So I think he's got a lot riding on the performance of Jackson Dart this season.
What if Danny Dimes just thrives under Shane Steichen in Indianapolis? I think Dayball's as good as gone just because I think he's been a terrible coach. He obviously, I don't think Daniel Jones was necessarily good, but Daniel Jones plus Saquon Barkley was still a terrible football team. I think, I already said Zach Taylor early. It's interesting because when you talk about pressure, it's like pressure for success versus pressure for your job. Like, I think Daboll has a chance to lose his job. I don't think Steichen has a chance to lose his job, but I think there is pressure for that organization to succeed. McDaniel, I think, has a chance to lose his job this year. I can't say that Zach Taylor has a chance to lose his job, but I think the standard for him is so much higher. It's I think they have to. I mean, if they don't make the playoffs again, Taylor's as good as gone for sure. And I don't even think the playoffs are a standard for them. I think like they need to go deep in the playoffs for it to be a successful year.
Yeah, I agree. I have a ton more, but I'll end it on this one for fun. Which player, the opposite? Which player has the most, or which coach? Let's take out Andy Reid. Okay, let's take him out. Who has the most scholarship between these two players? Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix?
And just, you mentioned it earlier, but for those who don't know the terminology you're using, scholarship is.
They could have the worst year in the world and no one cares. They're on scholarship. Like Andy Reid's on scholarship for probably a couple of years. At least. They would probably have to have 2 or 3 bad seasons before Reed would even be considered. So who, not counting Reed, who's got the most scholarship amongst Reed's a head coach, we could do head coaches, but Mahomes would be a better example. Mahomes could have a couple bad years and no one's going to even talk about his job ever. So who's on scholarship this year? Who can have a bad year and get away with it?
Do you mean, it depends. Do you mean get away with it as far as keeping their job, or get away with it as far as the media crucifix? Because like Josh Allen would keep his job. Josh Allen could go out and suck this year, and he's absolutely keeping his job. But the media, for whatever reason, is not a Josh Allen fan, and they would crucify him in the media. So like,
he's not on scholarship.
There's no risk. Like, there's zero risk of the Bills moving on from him or not having faith in him if he has a bad year. But the media will tear him a new one.
Yeah.
Right. So like I said, it depends on what your definition is, I guess, is what I'm getting at. You know what I mean?
I think
who's going to get their scholarship taken away? That would be pressure. But who, no matter what you do, is never going to lose their scholarship? I don't know. That's what I was thinking.
I
get
think
what you're saying, Mitch. I just need you to clarify. Do you mean? Oh crap! I forgot to turn on the hockey game. I need you to clarify. Do you mean that they will not lose their job, or do you mean that the media will give them a pass?
The both, either or. I guess take your pick. It's not really like a perfect question. I
I
guess
think
like
the problem with this is like two different dynamics. You have Bo Nix outplaying his kind of like draft capital, and you have Jaden Daniels exceeding expectations, obviously, but also like he had that potential. So it's tough because I think if Bo Nix is bad, people are gonna be like, oh, he just wasn't that good to begin with. If Jaden Daniels is bad, like they're gonna be like, oh my God, this is RG3 all over again. How did we
that's
get
what I was
stuck in
getting
this
at.
situation?
Is who's
Um,
on? So neither are on scholarship.
yeah, I don't think I think Bo Nix is more so on scholarship because they'll still give him a shot because he's better than what they've had. I don't know. I think Bo Nix is probably more apt to get benched in the future because they'll just continue to ride Jaden Daniels. But like if he has a bad season this year, I think is a big red flag for like his skill set.
Agreed. So
Also,
then
Alex,
flip it.
I don't know, are you planning on rewinding the hockey to watch it?
No, but I did just see goal, power play goal by the Panthers. Let's go.
Oh my God, you're in front of me. There's a power play goal by the Panthers.
My bad, my bad. The way you were talking,
Well,
I thought that's what you were about to
Wait.
spoil for me. So I was like, no, I'll tell you then.
No.
what
What I
we-
was gonna split. How? Wait. How much time? I've only got 20 seconds left in this power play. They score. Oh, there it is. So no, what I was gonna say is the way they got this power play was on their first goal. They had a guy in front of the goalie, the guy that kind of blocks out the goalie. On the shot, the guy gets tripped by the defenseman into the goalie, which causes them to score a goal, and then they go on power play because of that tripping. So they basically got two goals on on one. Does that make sense? What I was saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
they
that's
tripped a guy
normal.
into the goaltender, which made the first goal easier, then got called for tripping, and then went on power play right after that first goal.
I think the rule is always when the defense or the team that committed the foul, once they touch the puck, then it's blown dead, right?
Yeah, so
Right.
the way hockey works, it's kind of like playing advantage in soccer. Is if someone commits a penalty, one of the ref that's calling the penalty will
pull your
put his
goalie.
arm up in the air, and until that team touches the puck, the penalty is delayed. So like if let's say the Oilers do something that's penalty worthy, but the Panthers have the puck, play will continue until the Oilers touch the puck,
Right.
and
Yeah,
then
but
the
So,
what was
penalty will start.
interesting is it happened while the puck was in the air. He
oh
gets tripped
no.
into the goalie.
So the goalie can't touch it.
The goalie can't touch it. They score the goal. So it was 1-0 Oilers. Then there is now 1-1, and while reviewing the goal, they call a penalty to put the Panthers on power play immediately after they scored a goal. So the face-off on power play was on a Panthers goal. I've never really seen that before. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I kind of wish I'd been recording it. I meant to record it, but I forgot. But yeah, Draisaitl scored 6 seconds in the game, as you can see on the screen here for those looking at the stream. But yeah, hockey's going. Let's go ahead and wrap it up, I guess, because let's get to this hockey and want to watch it, boys. Any
Yeah, well,
final
I'll let
thoughts?
you guys. I'll let you guys get to the watching hockey. The whole point of that exercise was I think over the next month or two there's going to be a lot of media driven narratives that are just for attention, just because they have to do something. Oh, have to have stories. You're the media, right? You have to do this. If I decide before then what I think is the real pressure, and it helps me see through all the fugazi, irrelevant headlines that are about to come out in the next 2 months.
Well, if that's the case, then I may be drafting Patrick Mahomes way ahead of his QB position because I just think the narrative on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, there's a lot of pressure on them this year.
I've just been low key making you guys all think bad things about Caleb Williams so that I can get him as a steal in the late rounds and run the league. So if you guys
Dude,
want to stop me, if you guys want to stop me, you should take Caleb.
No, you drafting Caleb Williams would be like you drafting Tom Brady. I would never let you live that down.
Also, if you do draft Mahomes, which I'm sure he won't even be like a top 5 QB taken this year in fantasy, and because you truly believe he has pressure, that's going to be one of the biggest steals in fantasy ever.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Mitch is going to be over there with Dak Prescott blowing out an ankle again for like the 5th time in his
The
career.
Dak. No, actually, if you look at his stats, Dak and this is a big mistake I made, but I really wanted to stack. Dak is good every other year if you look at it historically. So he's due for a big year this year. Last year was a wrong year to draft him, and I knew that going in because that's the kind of research that I do. But I wanted to stack so bad, and it blew up in my face. But anyway, yeah, let's wrap it here, boys, because Vinny's got a heart out. I got some stuff I got to do, and we've been kind of yapping for a while here. Any final thoughts before I go watch this hockey game? It's currently a 4-on-4.
Go Panthers.
Go Panthers.
Sure, go Panthers.
All right. We're all on Team Panther here, USA all the way. Even though Vinny is going to go back to his homeland and have a good time in Italy, Vin, we will miss you. I mean, the podcast will miss you. The podcast might have better quality without you on it. But we personally as friends will miss you a little bit, bud.
Don't worry. Arrivederci. I will not think of you guys or this podcast at all during that time period, so the feeling is mutual.
Oh, you will, because I'm going to text you every day and make sure you know that you just lost the game.
Yeah.
Also, anyone listening, you also just lost the game. All right.
Oh my God.
Later, everybody. Say bye.
Yeah.
Bye.